Figured I would do an update on this enclosure. It is doing incredibly well, and got one sleepy pupper right there, and I've also got some really nice looking plants over here. Now this melanochrysum has never looked good a day in its life since I've had it. Every leaf rips because I've learned if I don't have 70% humidity, every leaf's gonna rip. So this is quite an oddity, this one right here. So I just ended up moving it away from my desk. I do see it whenever I first come into my office. It's actually doing pretty okay. I mean, it's got a lot of leaves and a ton of new ones forming. It's just the leaves themselves look a little bit distorted. And this is my Scindapsus. I used to call this before I really got into knowing the names of plants, and even now I don't consider myself an expert, but I used to call this the silver pothos, and I think that it does look like a pothos and it is silver. So anyways, so look how pretty it is, and I have it in a cauldron. And then there is my string of hearts and begonia amorphous. So here is the large terrarium I made in December. It is currently October, so I mean it's coming up on its 1 year mark, and I have a nice little lock here. There have been lots of things that have added and removed, and I do not know everyone's names, but I'm going to just show you around. So we have quite a lot of blooming happening right here. If we look in the back, this miniature orchid has a bloom, and it could open, it's probably going to open sometime this week. It's just so pretty. Look how cute it is. And I have it just with some cotton rope and some sphagnum. And there's not just one, there's another one. So there's like a baby one in there. But it's so young, it probably won't bloom anytime soon. I have several Hoyas. Now, I did remove the anthuriums I had in here. They were just getting too large. So I had a clarinervium up here. Now I have a Hoya. I traded a lot of my Hoyas and got some new ones. And I also have a peduncle here. See? I don't really know. Once something comes in here, I really forget what its name is or how it's doing, because I really don't have to worry about things, because these things mist 4 times a day. So they do 30 seconds every 6 hours, and it seems to work really well. And I also have a false bottom. I have a lot of rare and interesting terrarium begonias down there. So right there, that tiny little plant that's about the size of a quarter, that's a micro mini African violet night dew. And I have tons of air plants, and I don't really know all their names either. They do have some funny looking roots, like this one. It's like a perfect little hand. And then this one's got kind of a funny looking root too. But they're not really secured by their roots, they're secured with E6000. And then I have a ton of pups, 3 different pups, and then a really long root. This is my second largest air plant. So you can kind of see it here. It's a really large one. And then I've got even more. Spanish moss grows on trees natively where I live. So I just got some. Since it's only plants in here, there's not really anything too terrible that can happen. So you can see I have quite a few empty spots. So that's an empty spot. And sometimes things just outgrow the enclosure, so I just kind of take them out. Got 2 more air plants there. And then here is my Anthurium warquinum. And it's a nice size for the terrarium. And it probably has like a whole nother year in here. They grow really slow for me. If they grow quickly for you, tell me your secrets. I do fertilize mine and give it like mineral supplements and whatnot. So here is a lime maranta. Here's the watermelon vine kind of hiding. This one's really cool. It's actually dead, but whenever it's working, well, the screen looks like it's going out, but it is accurate. So you can control this with Wi-Fi and monitor it. Now, I can't control the mister with Wi-Fi, so maybe if I had one of those that's a little bit more advanced, that might be more interesting. This is the one that I have and have had since December, and it works really well. I really like it. He's gonna have to be removed soon. This crinkle fern is just it's a little large. It's like probably doubled or quadrupled or tripled. I don't know how big it was. I can't even remember how large it was when I put it in here. But if we look around, we've got some interesting begonias. So this is a Darth begonia, and it's a hybrid. So it's really pretty. It has really struggled outside of this terrarium, but once I put it in here, it did pretty well. This one's really a really pretty begonia, very shimmery. And then here's Magia, and the older leaves get eaten by like the isopods and stuff, and they're all blooming. See, we got some male and female flowers. So this one's a female flower and this one's a male flower. And I got this on clearance. I think it's some type of a ficus. I got it because of how provocative it looked, actually. Thought it was really funny, but you really can't see it anymore because you got all these begonias kind of covering it up. And I took the vines and tried to, well, I took the new growth and wrapped it around itself like you can see here, and wanted it to look kind of like vines. I released a lot, I can't remember the number right now, but I released a lot of predatory mites in here because I did have a spider mite issue, but I only had spider mites on this little, I think it's a ficus tree. I like to put dead leaf litter and stuff here. So like here's some dead ferns. Here's a Jacqueline leaf. So you can kind of just see they have to eat dead leaf matter, and I kind of wonder sometimes that they're not getting enough. You can actually see they have these tiny little like little tunnels in the soil, and you can see the roly-polies. Now, I have noticed a few snails in here, and I've removed those and feed them to my nepenthes. I just don't find them to be beneficial. And I have this void right here where everything's not exactly connected because the isopods, they will eat the trichomes off of your air plants. So I created a little bit of a barrier. I think I may have found one up there and he wasn't eating the trichomes off the air plants, but it's just something to think about. But he's got to kind of crawl up some stuff, which, I mean, there is stuff for them to crawl on. But yeah, I've got some variegated Schlaflera. But yeah, pretty much what I like to do is if I have a plant that I'm really worried about, I just kind of put it in here, and most of the time they live. It's like this is your last stop, potentially. Some plants don't make it though. But like, yeah, the rare begonias, the terrarium begonias, like if I have one that's really struggling, I'll put it in here. I also have some peperomia. My jewel orchids are in here. You really can't see them, they're just so daggum dark. Oh, trying to get it to focus. There, you can see them now. But yeah, I have some jewel orchids. I have several of the same variety, and they do the best in here. Now, I understand that that variety of jewel orchid people can grow very easily. When I visited the botanical garden in DC, they had one out on their desk, like in the entrance, and it was blooming like crazy, but I just really struggled with having them outside of a terrarium, despite having other terrarium plants outside in ambient humidity. Those just didn't seem to do well. And sometimes they need to get acclimated and then they're fine, or the plant just needs to be more mature. But yeah, so I've got quite a few. And the misters spray the back portion. If you're gonna have Hoyas, you need to have them really high up so they don't get misted as often. Like here's a Hoya umbulata, and got some peperomias. They really love terrariums. I mean, I can grow them outside of terrariums, but they seem to really thrive inside terrariums. And they're pretty low light. All of these plants, I think, are pretty low light. And I have a lot of lights here. So this one honestly needs to be moved because it's not, none of the light's getting inside. So I have 6 of the Barrina. I think these are the 12-inch under cabinet lights. And then I have this terrarium light here. And it can do all kinds of cool stuff. It can do thunderstorms. If the battery works, it may not work. Honestly, who knows? And it may have, these may be so bright you may not even notice. I think the battery's dead in that. But anyways, you could replicate different things. But yeah, I just thought that that wasn't enough light, so I added all these others after the fact. But yeah, so that's how the terrarium's doing. Doing pretty darn good. It's just crazy how much it's grown in. And when I do remove a plant like this crinkle fern, I cut around the perimeter of it and then take it out, because if you do it any other way, you're going to disrupt your entire false bottom and whatnot. But yeah, you can see all the little different roots and whatnot. It's kind of cool. The soil does look kind of dry, but I don't have it soaking wet all the time. And that's the crazy thing. This thing, you know, sprays 4 times a day, every 6 hours, but it's still not sopping wet. So you just kind of have to find like a happy medium whenever you make one. Now my moss isn't doing too great. I only have this one spot of moss that's actually really happy. It's the kind that grows on bricks in my backyard, which isn't like a real name or anything. But the kind that I have that grows on tree bark, it's up there, but I don't think that it gets wet enough to stay alive. Now I've seen people mix moss and buttermilk and then paint it onto the background. I may do that as just kind of like a little bit of an upgrade whenever I have more time. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's been a really nice thing because you can just come home from work or school and just kind of look at it, and it's really neat. And you just put some isopods in there. You really don't have to worry much at all because nothing lives in here other than the isopods. And I have some really interesting springtails. I like to get out my little hand magnifier and try to find them, and when I do, I put them on my shorts. But yeah, I have a globular springtail. I think I have a short on that on my channel. They're really interesting and hard to see, but when I'm just bored, I'll go and I'll look around with my magnifying glass and find different things I didn't even know were in here. Because I'm guessing that they traveled on different plants and stuff. But yeah. So if you're curious on whether or not you should build one, I think you should. They're really cool. And you can make it to be whatever you can imagine. I did end up adding 2 extra sprayers because I wanted more of a fine mist on a larger place, so everybody gets a nice mist. But yeah, pretty cool. Be sure to like, and if you want to see more updates, subscribe. And I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye.